It's happened only 3 times in the past 16 years, and all of them have been incredibly powerful signals on the macro for all markets. And of course, we'll be going over some Bitcoin price action in today's video as well. In fact, some incredibly powerful higher term time frame setups I do want to be revisiting for today because, well, I think you might find them quite compelling, or at least I think that they're quite compelling. At the end of the day, I'll let you decide what is compelling to you and make your decisions for your own self as well, which means that your own victories are your own victories, which is good, which is how it should be. And most importantly, a big, massive announcement at the end of this video. Very, 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 very important, actually. So let's just jump right into it, starting off right on over here with the analysis of the day. Here is the VIX symbol, VIX, the volatility index, which essentially represents fear as far as traditional markets go. And to reference the title of today's video, what we have only seen happen 3 times in the past 16 years is the VIX getting above 60. Anytime that it has gotten above 60, which is represented by this green horizontal line right here and represented by these red vertical bars right here on those past iterations, we have seen the market essentially put in major lows, or sorry, I should say macro lows, or very, very close to the macro lows in terms of both price and time for traditional markets. Now, when I put on the SPX chart in the background, let me just get rid of VIX right here because this will make a lot more sense. We can see that those areas correlate with, well, exactly what I just said. It's a little bit redundant right there. But as you can see in 08, this was October 08, markets already had their black swan, and yes, things did come a little bit further down. Yeah, absolutely. But ultimately, in terms of the grand scheme of things, even just looking 1 year out or 6 months out, these were phenomenal buy areas, both in terms of price and time. And then, of course, the more recent one in March of 2020, coming off another black swan. Well, you already know how that one went. This one literally was on the low. Now you'll notice that I have another set of vertical bars here, the cyan ones, and I just wanted to point out that these ones, while they do correlate with spikes lower than what I just said, or sorry, than what we just looked at, which was actually anchored at 65. These ones are anchored at 50. These have also essentially correlated with incredibly powerful reads for traditional markets. And I want to remind you that the current read got, well above there. So let me just take this away yet again, and we'll look exactly at that. You can see that these cyan vertical bars correlate basically with extreme lows within an overall uptrending market. And so, putting two and two together, we can see that, hey, look, traditional markets, as we said yesterday, or even on Monday, they very likely bottomed. At the very minimum, I mean, you're looking at a humongous bounce from here, I suspect, but they very likely bottomed for this current trending move. And while it can take some time, maybe a month or two, I would expect traditional markets to kind of dig themselves out from here. And that was one of the big parts of yesterday's analysis, saying like, hey, this is not, I don't think this is what people think this is right now. I think that this is an opportunity. And just to answer the question that I put out, or not the question that I put out, but to confirm what I did yesterday, I did buy more stocks. Just to kind of put my money where my mouth is. I look at this as an opportunity. I mean, when the markets have a 10% down, few days, you're almost always going to be rewarded for that within about a year for traditional markets. So to me, it's kind of like a no-brainer buy. Can they come down more? Sure. But as of right now, I like what's going on. And to also reference something that came out yesterday that's kind of going on in the background as far as, the market dynamics. This, again, came out yesterday, and it says starting tomorrow, so that would be today, the U.S. Treasury will begin buying back up to $46 billion worth of outstanding government securities by the end of October, primarily to provide liquidity support. When was the last time this happened? You already know the answer. You already know the fucking answer. Was it maybe one of these red vertical bars here? Maybe even both. So kind of looking at things from different angles, I think that bodes well, just generally for markets. Moving on from there, I want to get directly into Bitcoin, and I want to address something here with the hash ribbon. So, on Monday, we did see the condition violated for the hash ribbons, where the daily did close below that last major trending low, which was 55,900 or so. Now, I do think. So actually, the way that I should say this is that I'll tell you my interpretation of this. And again, you're free to interpret this however you want, but perhaps this will be compelling. Look, From Monday on the daily closure, we had a bit of a one-off event. It was a little bit of like a half black swan, if you want to call it that. And Bitcoin price did actually close very, very close to that last major trending low. Bitcoin closed a bit above $54,000, I do believe, by end of day. CME obviously higher than that. And so very, very close on an extreme event. Keeping in mind the underlying market dynamics with both this and this in the background, I do think that one of the better ways to kind of get rid of a noisy event like this is to go to a higher term time frame, like the 5-day time frame. We've done this in the past, actually, and one of the reasons why the 5-day time frame is actually slightly better for the hash ribbons, albeit giving slower signals, of course, is that the signals have less noise. There have been 16 prior iterations compared to the 19 that we see on the daily, and of those 16, only 2 have failed in the past. And we've essentially looked at in the past the 5-day to kind of confirm the daily. And, well, the 5-day did confirm the buy signal. However, the 5-day, which is closing tonight, by the way, has not closed on new lows yet. In fact, right now it's a few $100 above that last prior trending low, which is 56,700. So it's a long day left to go, obviously. 16 hours, 7 minutes, and 24 seconds and counting. But as of right now, Bitcoin is above that pivot. And I would comfortably say, for me personally, if Bitcoin closes above that last higher low, 56,700, by today's five-day closure, I will consider this condition still valid. That's the way that I'm looking at it right now. And I will be making decisions based off of that. And honestly, I mean, it might be a little bit redundant anyways because of my thoughts on stock markets as we went over in the past couple of days. So, it's kind of hard to be bearish on Bitcoin if you're bullish on traditional markets, or at least looking at like a major rally off those lows, coming into the next couple months. So fair enough. On top of that, Wednesday, while it does actually have a slightly higher probability to close negatively than positively since 2024 began, Wednesday actually has the highest positive returns for any weekday, with an average return of 360. And so what would that look like on top of today's current open? That would put Bitcoin perhaps closer to about $58,000 or a little bit above $58,000 if that does occur, which would obviously fulfill this pivot over here. Again, 56,700 is the number to beat. So, and I do think that Bitcoin will continue on with the bounce today. I mean, as we'll look at a little bit later. Of course, can the opposite happen as well? Obviously. I mean, it does have a slightly higher probability. But shaving off 189, which is the average negative return, would put Bitcoin back down around $55,000. So if you do see some downside price action, you're probably looking at, likely a bit of a scalp opportunity within that region, somewhere around like low 55, basically. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that Bitcoin's less likely to close below there for the end of today. Anyways, moving on from there, I do want to bring up this as well. Stochastic momentum on all higher term timeframes, or almost all higher term timeframes, is looking for at least a nice bounce here, or continuation of this bounce. We saw extremes on volatility on Monday. This is a read right here of 97 percentile, which we have not seen anything that high since March of this year. Remember, volatility is direction neutral, so that did essentially call the top almost to the day. And so, is this move to the downside done? It's done for now. I mean, Bitcoin's already had like what, a 20% bounce or some shit. Make that almost 17% bounce thus far. But yes, daily stochastic momentum continues up as long as Bitcoin's above 52,350 basically. The 5-day time frame will also continue up, keeping in mind that this one closes tonight, assuming Bitcoin closes above 55,300. And the weekly is also twisting and turning here, seemingly rejecting going into the bearish control zone as long as Bitcoin's above $54,000. Now, obviously, the weekly doesn't close tonight, but it does close at the end of this week. And funnily enough, at the end of this week, obviously, and funnily enough for CME, which closes on Friday, so just 2 days from today, The pivot is actually lower, 53,350, which you typically would not expect. But hey, that is in the cards there, which I thought was incredibly interesting, which you might find compelling as well. Anyways, I'll leave you on this last thing as well here. Daily time frame, we did identify this on Monday, a nice bounce off of the 97.5% area right here when Bitcoin was at like low $49,000. Now, again, probabilistically speaking, the likelihood of Bitcoin, staying below there by that end of the day was like literally, what is that, like 2.5%? Yeah, 2.5%. So quite unlikely. But and while I couldn't have told you that bounce was going to bring it all the way back to $54,000 by end of day there, it did. And then more importantly, we're seeing volatility contraction here on the HPDRV, and directional volatility represented by the HPDRO is turning up after getting to like max extreme to the downside, which again, we have not seen reads like this. Like, when was the last time we saw a read like this? November of 2022. Let me actually mark this area. Well, obviously, we already know what that is. That's the low. That's literally the low for Bitcoin of the prior market cycle. Before that, you saw the same thing in June of 2022. That was the low of the FTX dump, which did produce a nice big bounce. And then May was the time before that. Again, both of these last ones were in the context of massive bear markets, and even those still did produce some pretty impressive rallies. So. Looking at it over here, do I think that Bitcoin's likely to continue on with this rally? Probably yes. We're probably going to see Bitcoin test around the median, which as of right now is way up there at $65,000. Obviously, that doesn't need to happen today, but ultimately, this probably does happen in the next 5 days, and that will give it a chance to come down. It probably comes down closer to 60,000 within that time frame. So, it's within the cards there. And just looking at this from a fib perspective as well, I do want to show. Whoops, I guess I already have it in. Jesus Christ, I have way too much shit going on right there. Let me actually just put it on right there. Boom. Okay, let's get rid of this shit as well. We can see, the 50% level is actually right around or just above $60,000, a little bit above $60,000 for CME. I'd go as far to say that, hey, look, if Bitcoin closes back above 60,200, even from like just a pure price action perspective, it's hard to imagine. I shouldn't say those words, but very unlikely that this thing does go lower. Again, it can test around the lows, sure, or low 50s or whatever, but those are likely opportunities, and I'm not so confident you get even that at this point with the way that traditional markets are looking. But, it's a long time left to go. We basically have about 2 months, according to this over here. So we shall see. Anyways, now it is time for the big bad announcement. And I should also just say that Bitcoin's generally in a bounce phase, especially as long as price is above 55,400 or so. You should see volatility contraction lead to upside price action, and then a reconsolidation. If the bulls are going to be right here, then it's going to be above $60,000. If the bears going to be right, you'd probably be expecting a little bit below $60,000 on the next lower high. All right. Anyways, it's time for the big bad announcement. It's time to turn on your speakers, turn up your ears, and
do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.